Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we're actually going to be covering two banners, one that just passed that featured Juri as well as Chiyuki. I wanted to get that video out earlier, but then I had some real-life circumstances that prevented that from happening, so we're going to be lumping it in here. It's important to have that information even if the banner isn't necessarily available, which is something I've been wanting to do for a little bit anyway, so it was fair to do this at this time. And of course, we'll be talking about the latest banner featuring PSSR for Rinzai, SSSR for Yuika, and the latest event support SSR for Asahi. Starting things off with PSSR for Rinzai. The first of the fourth set of Hokago SSRs, Rinzai arrives on the scene and reprises her role as the best evergreen buffer in the game. She's no joke with the ability to enable all three mainline appeal stats on top of having competent vocal appeals to tack on extra damage, combined with the extra memory gauge boosting for Hokago. It's also worth noting that she has a plus 300 to vocal uncap, which puts her on par with the latest Mamimi, who also had a plus 300 to her main stat. Even at 0 stars or at base copy, Rinzai provides so much for teams that are looking for generic buffing but don't want to use SR Chiyoko or the older event SR Rinzai. Hokago, especially vocal Hokago, absolutely want this incredible support for their lineup, and any other vocal or rainbow team will greatly appreciate Rinzai's backup. Her roles are center, buffer, memory boost, and leader. So what does she do? Her initial skill is a vocal 3.0 appeal that applies a vocal dance visual 80% buff for 2 turns, as well as increases your attention by 155% for 4 turns. The link appeal on her skill is a memory gauge boost of 50%. When fully limit broken, her max skill is a vocal 4 appeal that applies a vocal dance visual 120% buff for 2 turns, as well as the same attention 155% for 4 turns, and the link appeal stays the same at a memory gauge boost of 50%. For her passives, at 1 star she gains a vocal 40% buff as well as a memory gauge boost of 20% as long as it is turn 4 or earlier. It has a 20% chance to activate 1 time. At 2 stars, she gains a vocal dance visual 50% buff, as well as a memory gauge boost of 30%, as long as it is turn 5 or later. Has a 20% chance to activate 1 time. And her memory appeal is a vocal dance visual 1.0 that links into an additional vocal dance visual 1.0. All of these are amazing. As a leader, not only does Rinzai get a boost to her mental stat, but she also gains a flat boost to the activation chances of all passives, meaning that these 20% are probably closer to 40 or 50%, and these end up being extremely useful. On top of the fact that you could give her other amazing buffs, depending on the team you're running her on, this Rinzai will be incredible. It is hard to ignore a 120% buff to all 3 stats, especially if you are running multi-stat type teams such as Illumination Stars or Straylight. This card is just that good. As for her recommended supports, while her appeals may all be vocal, you might find yourself wanting to run Rinzai 4 on any team thanks to her 80% and 120% buff to all stats respectively. Ultimately, the build is up to you and what you need. I'll show vocal supports for high priority and other stats as alternatives, so you can see limited Hiyori, limited Meguru, limited Kaho, who I think are all very much core, as well as alternatives such as the SR limited Kogane, who has a fantastic vocal passive, cards like SR Kaho if you don't have the limited, SSR Natsuha or SR Natsuha for vocal, SR Chiyoko, or SSR Amana. There are of course many others including the vocal Sakuya who are also reasonable, but again, it all depends on preference, limit breaks, levels, all that nonsense. So as long as you know what your best vocal supports are, they can run alongside this Rinzai no problem. As for some alternatives, you can include of course the limited mono if you want more dance visual. If you need more dance, the old Mamimi card, of course, is still fantastic, as well as the new Yuika and Sakura Mochi Master Chiyoko. This truly is probably the most open-ended card in this game, that you can run her any way you want it, and it will always be good. For recommended teammates, Vokago gains a brand new support with Rinzai, so the overall game plan changes slightly. Not by a whole lot. She does replace the SR Rinzai, which means she now has access to damage on top of vocal buffs. It might not be as strong, but the extra damage might make up for it. And especially with her link. Her 50% memory gauge boost on Link can lead to new opportunities, but you might have to chain Rinzai into Rinzai by turn 5 or 6 to reap the most benefit. Run her as leader to have those higher percent chances to activate passives. And of course, Rainbow Hokago loves her too. Your Volcago setup will be Rinzai 4, Kaho 2, Juri 2, Natsuha 2, Chiyoko 1, or the SR Chiyoko. And as for Rainbow Hokago or Nijikago, you can run Rinzai 4, Juri 2, Kaho 3 as the center this time, Chiyoko 3, and Natsuha 3. Overall, this card gets a grade of an A- to an S as a center. I don't think you'd really plan on running this Rinzai as center. However, her memory appeal does technically have more damage behind it than Kaho 1, at the cost of no 50% buffs afterwards. Maybe something to think about for the future. I still think that Kaho 3 is technically a better center if you're looking for a rainbow center, but this Rinzai would be more consistent damage-wise at any point in the game, versus Kaho 3 that needs the attention. And as a unit, the first time I'm going to give a card a triple S. That's it. This is our support. There's so many upsides to running this Rinzai on so many teams that can afford to include her. The passives are extremely powerful, her appeals are wonderful for all that can use her. It's amazing that the best and most useful card is a support, and it's truly a refreshing timeline to be in. Moving on, we have the limited support SSR, Yuika. Yuika's second limited SSR in almost 2 months. I hate to be a Yuika P right now. With a setup alongside Hot Pot Mamimi, you can earn up to 52 SP per week in the visual room, assuming all 5 Antika members are present. Even with just Mamimi and Yuika, it's 37. It's not exactly a number to scoff at. She's an insanely useful SP battery for visual, and a new ludicrous passive that really pushes visual teams over the edge, and she might become a new staple in most teams in the same way that Wanderlust Mamimi did for so many dance teams in the past. And in the present, really. Her skills are Idol's Bond, which goes up to level 10 at max, Visual Mastery SP, which starts at 2 and goes all the way up to 16 when the card reaches level 75, Promise Recovery of 2, Rest Boost of 3, and Unit Mastery SP of +5 once the card reaches level 70. So you will need to get this card to 2 or 3 stars to reap the most benefit out of the SP gain that this card can offer you. It is also worth noting that despite being a visual card, Yuika's idea in TFD is vocal. So for people looking to have a vocal idea, this is a fantastic card for your TFD runs in visual, since you will probably need books that have vocal ideas present. As for her passives and skill, at 1 star she gains a visual 33% buff if the team includes Yuika, has a 33% chance to activate 3 times. Her 2-star passive is the important one, a visual 100% buff as well as attention 20% down, as long as your mental is half or lower, and has a 30% chance to activate 1 time. I don't really have to tell you how good that is. It's fantastic. So, if you didn't have that Mamimi, this is the visual equivalent and it is still just as good. Her uncap is a visual 100, and her 4-star appeal is a visual 2.0 that attacks all judges. However, it reduces your mental by 30% and reduces your attention by 30% for 3 turns. This card gets a very easy double S. Wanderlust Mamimi, meet your visual counterpart. We talked in a previous Shiny review about how limited Kiriko was a staple for limited Mamimi, specifically Mamimi 4, and her team. Now they have a second unit who is arguably better in some ways and worse in others. Honestly, for the visual 100% buff alone, she's double S. Every team that runs visual in some capacity other than Alstroemeria wants this card, and wants this card at 2-star specifically. She's too good to pass up. And lastly, Asahi. Asahi's first SSR support happens to be an event card. She comes with a reasonable dance mastery of +8, and stamina support can be appreciated depending on your support lineup. She has a somewhat interesting appeal when you fully max her out, though I think you might consider using SR Asahi still in some situations. Her skills are Idol's Bond, which reaches a level 5 at level 70, Dance Mastery Dance, which goes up to +8, which is fair and respectable, Stamina Support, Rest Boost, and Promise Recovery. Much like SR Asahi, this Asahi also has a dance idea for TFD, so you might find some weird overlap between the 2 cards, and ultimately it's up to you as to which card you think is stronger for your team. As for her skills and passives, at 1 star, Asahi gains a dance 18% buff if you have an active dance buff, 30% chance to activate 1 time. Her 2-star passive is a dance 35% up if you have an active visual buff, 30% chance to activate one time. Her uncap, much like every other SSR event card, is a plus 50, this one is for dance. And her 4-star appeal is a dance 2.5 that applies a dance and visual buff of 10% for 5 turns each. Overall, Asahi gets an a perfectly acceptable event SSR, minus the usual problem of not having enough stat uncaps. She has a stronger set of passives than SR Asahi, but some may want the 2 separate dance buffs over 1 dance, 1 visual. She's not too hard to consider for teams, really. She has easy buff activation requirements, and she's good for general use dance teams. Definitely consider getting this card to 4-star as you work your way through the event. And now moving on, please protect your eyes, I'm sorry for the next layout here. We have the previous banner, featuring SSR2 Jury. Debuting in Shiny just barely over a year ago, Limited Jury set the standard for what a limited unit really meant. She completely changed the dynamic of Vocal Grade Fest by having access to one of the rarest type of appeals at the time, an Attack All. So she was able to hit all 3 judges with her main vocal stat all the time. And she was incredible and in some ways obnoxious for it. Nowadays, Jury sees slightly less play than normal, but still has amazing sticking power when it comes to Vocal Fest. She's hard to match unless you're Mono 4 or Vostromeria, and sets up one of the more explosive teams known affectionately as Vokago. She is still very much a card worth having around to this day. Her roles are Center, Attack All, a Nuker, and a Debuffer. So what does she do? Her initial skill is a Vocal 2x appeal that attacks all judges, but reduces your defense by 50% for 1 turn, and links into a Vocal 1.5x appeal. It's worth noting that the link only attacks a single judge, it's only the initial skill that attacks all judges. At max, her appeal is a Vocal 3.5 that attacks all judges, and still reduces your defense by 50% for 1 turn, and links into a Vocal 2.0. Her passives are a Vocal 21% up if your mental is 75% or lower, has a 40% chance to activate 1 time. Her 2-star passive, which is amazing, is a Vocal 80% up as well as Attention 100% up as long as it is turn 5 or earlier, has a 20% chance to activate 2 times max. And her memory appeal is a Vocal 2.0 that also then links into a Vocal 3.0. Having access to a Vocal 5 memory appeal is honestly quite insane, combined with the ability for Jury to attack all the judges with 3.5s and 2.0s that are all benefiting from vocal buffs like her Vocal 80% that can activate twice. There's so much damage on the table with this Jury that it's kind of ridiculous even now. For her recommended supports, Jury is kind of a one-trick pony. She just wants as much vocal as you can feed into her. All of your strongest passives will do the job, as her appeals will do the rest. So as you can see, we have more or less the same lineup, though this time I decided to include Sakuya here, as I think the passive may be more useful, as well as access to a little more SP. And of course we have some alternatives, such as Kogane, Kiriko, Rinze, and Amana, since due to the nature of her appeals reducing your defense, damage cut passives may be considered, which is why all the cards below either have some form of either memory gauge boosting, or defense up, or means to stay alive longer. As for the teammates, it somehow works out that Rinze came out as an immediate support for Vokago immediately after the Jury banner left. If these teams look familiar, that's because they should. Nothing really changes here. You either have Jury let them have it on a pure vocal team, or have her be an amazing vocal backup for a Rainbow Vokago setup with Kaho 3 at the helm. Overall, Jury gets a double S across the board. Even a year later, Jury is still a fantastic vocal center and continues to be a threat in Fest. If you have the means to support Jury's vocal endeavors, you can expect plenty of judges to fall. And as a unit, of course, double S. She has one job: hit all the judges really hard. And she still does this job well. While many AoE units have come out since her inception, Jury still shows that being simplistic can work to your advantage, as long as your passives can back you up. And last, we have Chiyuki. Chiyuki's first limited support, initially regarded as the best Chiyuki because the competition wasn't very fierce. You really only had one support Chiyuki and then the initial SSR Chiyuki, which is not very good, so this card felt like a godsend. Then Warm Snow Chiyuki, the last limited card, was released and completely blew this card out of the water and then some. Her unique mastery was cool, but ultimately not great. Quite honestly, this card has aged probably the worst out of any limited SSR. I wouldn't really recommend pursuing this card. It is worth noting that she has a dance idea for TFD, but I don't think you're necessarily going to be hurting for those, especially with one of the other cards that was featured on this banner that is arguably much better. The support skills of this card includes Idol's Bond, Dance Mastery Dance, which does get up to plus 16 at level 70, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, as well as her unique Room Mastery. How Room Mastery works is that she has a % chance equivalent to the level of the skill that when she is in a room, she will automatically level up the room. And you will always know when this happens because Chiyuki's cut-in will happen. So at max, you have a 6% chance to level up a room immediately, as long as Chiyuki is in it. Ultimately, like I said, that didn't really pan out too well for her, and the rest of this card makes her extremely hard to field. So why is that the case? Well, her 1-star passive is fine. It's a dance 21% up if your card is in the dance position, 30% chance to activate 1 time. Her 2-star passive, however, is a dance 25% buff as well as mental 10% heal if your mental is 24% or lower. Has a 30% chance to activate 1 time. Her uncap is a dance 100, and her appeal is a dance 3.0 that applies a 10% mental heal immediately. Chiyuki gets a C. Now that we know how Alstromeria and Danstromeria specifically want to operate, combined with a new Chiyuki Limited being immensely better than this card, this Chiyuki has seen better days. Her 2-star passive didn't make sense then, and it still doesn't now. Her Dance Mastery is her only saving grace, as Room Mastery is too low of odds to make good use of. Sorry, Chiyuki. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with our next video whenever that comes around. If you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and share it around to let people know what we're doing and bringing you more Shiny Colors content. So, till the next banner, I've been Cho. Thanks for watching.